Welcome to the Tuning In podcast, where we talk alignment, intuition, and our internal guidance system. We cover woo-woo topics in an approachable and practical way. I'm your host, Dana Evans of Alignful.com. Hello and welcome to another week of the Tuning In podcast. I am so happy to have each of you here listening. So I am talking today about your inner voice. And I know I mention it all the time on this podcast, and I realized that maybe it's time to explain it a little further so that we're all on the same page when I talk about inner voice. So if you're curious about the inner voice, or you hear me talking about it on Instagram or over on this podcast, then this is a perfect episode for you, because through the episode, you're going to discover a little bit more what your inner voice is, how to tell the difference between your inner voice and inner critic. I'll gloss over that, why your inner voice is important, and how to listen for and hear it. And you may or may not know, but on March 16th through the 20th, I am offering a free 5-day challenge all about discovering your unique inner voice. So what you'll find through this 5-day challenge is that there are 5 ways your inner voice is already trying to communicate with you. And through the challenge, you'll discover what way your inner voice talks to you and how you can actually start hearing what it's saying and be guided by that, and really build this relationship of trust with yourself so you feel more confident in who you are and are able to make decisions that are right for you versus what's expected of you. So mark your calendars for March 16th, okay? And there will be a link in the show notes if you want to learn more. So without further ado, here's this week's episode. Happy Woo Woo Wednesday! I am so excited to be chatting with you today about one of my favorite topics, your inner voice. So let's get started. What is an inner voice, and do you have one? This is a question that I get all the time. Well, Dana, you may be connected to this, but I don't think I am. And you might wonder, what the heck is this? What does it mean? What are you talking about when you're doing this inner voice work? And this is really what I want to help you with and share more about today, so that we're all on the same page and you can really start to understand what it means for you and how it is truly, truly life-changing to connect with your own inner voice. So contrary to popular belief, your inner voice is not the snarky, mean, critical voice in your head. That is what I call the ego, or the ego mind. It's not the voice that tells you you aren't good enough, worthy, or lovable. Again, that's the ego. Instead, your inner voice is a voice of compassion, wisdom, and understanding. This voice is here to guide you and help you feel more calm, confident, and connected in everyday life. Unfortunately, the inner voice is often shut out by the ego. The voices in your head that are loud, demanding, fearful, and mean. That's the ego mind. You see, the inner voice often comes through as a quiet whisper or a soft answer to a question that you pose. If you're not listening for it or even aware of it, you likely won't hear it, especially as you start this journey. And we've all heard of instances, though, like think of Eat, Pray, Love, where she's on the floor of the bathroom and she hears this clarity. And you may have experienced that as well. And that is something you can connect to the wisdom, the inner wisdom of your inner voice shining through, especially in a moment of desperation. But the reason I teach inner voice work is because I don't want you to have to be at that moment of desperation in order to hear this voice and to be guided. Let's start ahead so you don't have to get to the bottom before you can hear this voice. And as I was mentioning, the inner voice wants to talk to you. It wants you to know that you are on the right path and you do have the answers within. Let this wisdom come forward. Let it come out from deep within you. And just as a little cursory, I want to talk a bit more about the inner critic versus the inner voice, because sometimes it is hard to tell whether you're hearing your inner voice or your ego. So here are a couple key signs. So the critic is going to be fearful, whereas your inner voice is going to be trusting. Your ego mind is going to have resistance. Your inner voice is going to have allowance. Your ego will have resentment. Your inner voice will have compassion. Doubt, urgency, loud, demanding, controlling, right and wrong, black and white, those are all tendencies of the ego. Versus source energy, calm, patient, present, quiet, consistent, non-attachment, all is well. Love is omnipresent. Those are all energies of the inner voice. Your ego mind will make you feel anxious, guilty, and uneasy, where it can be mean to you, judgmental, critical, and harsh, where your inner voice will offer gentle guidance without expectation. Your inner voice is that of unconditional love, acceptance, and trust. And your ego thinks about scarcity. It says you're not good or worthy or lovable. It reminds you of failures and danger, and it wants you to trust authority over yourself. Whereas the inner voice is that of abundance, and it reminds you to trust yourself, that you have guidance all the time, and that your potential, dreams, and joy are always within reach. Can you feel the difference between the two? And the reason I like to really call that out is because you can sense it. So just hearing the energies and the phrases and what goes on between the two is extremely helpful, because then you can start to pick up on those. So why is your inner voice important? Why develop a new relationship to something you didn't even know you had? How many times have you liked an Instagram quote about answers being within? It sounds nice, but what does it really, really mean? What answers are within, and how do you access them? With instant access to influencers, experts, coaches, and Google, hello, is there really a reason to go inward for the answers? Well, first of all, that, my friend, is a really great question to ask your inner voice. And here's another question. Is it really better to get answers from outside of yourself? It certainly may be easier, but is it better? We've been raised to trust authority, to shut down our emotions, to follow the right path and ignore our instincts and doubt our gut reactions. But why? Well, there's many reasons. And unfortunately, as you may know, marketing and money are a big part of that equation. That's not really the point of this episode. Maybe we'll cover that in another episode. But just know that you, from a young age, are actually conditioned to not trust yourself. And I want to shift that and shift to this understanding that yes, there's great information and resources externally. And yes, our egos serve a purpose to keep us safe. But that doesn't mean we need to constantly be guided and driven by other people, other expectations, even our ego, that while the intentions may be good, they may not. We don't know. They're not always what's truly serving us in this moment. Have you ever had a knowing about something but chose to follow the well-worn path of expectation or advice of others? How did that work out for you? We have our own Google, an inner GPS built right into our souls. That's our inner voice. We don't have to learn or do anything to access. It's within each of us. We just have to open and allow. Imagine what would happen if you could stop searching for answers and start uncovering them from within. When I started doing this work a couple of years ago, my life became more aligned. I was finally able to tune in, hence the name of this podcast, and gain the clarity, confidence, and connection that I so desperately was seeking externally. So, how do you listen to your inner voice? I have a really simple 3-step process that can get you started, and I'll talk about that in a couple minutes here. It's not a matter of creating your inner voice, like I said, but rather a matter of uncovering it. So, we have to first, though, be able to remove the layers of fear and doubt, mind chatter, right? The ego, and the external noise before we can truly listen to this voice. It's not about doing, rather, it's practicing releasing resistance and allowing this to bubble up from within you. See, we spend so much time pushing it down and pushing it, casting it aside, that think of it like a kid that you're constantly ignoring. At first, it might get louder, but then it might kind of feel dejected and start to suppress. And that's what's happening to our inner voice. If we don't connect with it, while it still wants to connect with you, it will go more dormant because it doesn't feel heard. After practicing this, listening to my inner voice, I really have learned that it can be a simple practice. I don't want this to be a big, scary thing for you to have to spend an hour in meditation before you can tap into your inner wisdom, and that's too much work. I want this to be accessible to you in everyday life, in the moment-to-moment decisions that are constantly asking you to decide on. The more you follow these steps, the more awareness you'll create. And with more awareness, you become primed to listen for and respond to your inner voice. And this is just one of many positive side effects of this process that I'm going to teach you. But as you integrate it into your day, notice what else changes for the better. So the process: stop, look, and listen. This is the method that I've created to quickly help you tap into your inner voice. Now, this is the quick and dirty version. The Align in 5 membership is a much more in-depth, comprehensive 12-month process to get you not just aware of your inner voice, but get you living from your inner voice with this deep, deep knowing, self-trust, self-compassion, and awareness of what you need in any given moment. It's broken into 4 different sections of 3 months each. Really simple practices. Again, nothing I teach is about more work that you need to do. It's more about embodying, and it's like a staircase. With every 3 months, you go a level deeper and a level deeper and a level deeper until you're truly aligned with this inner voice. But in the meantime, it is by no means out of your reach to access your inner voice now with the stop, look, and listen method. The main reason you aren't hearing your inner voice is that you have too much going on. You're too busy to listen, and you may not even know it's trying to talk to you. When your mind is full, it's very hard to hear anything but incessant ego chatter. We need to create space for the chatter to buzz off so your inner voice can speak up. This is why I created the Stop, Look, and Listen method as an easy-to-remember practice that you can use throughout your day. You may remember this mantra from when you were a kid. Stop, look, and listen. You do that before you cross the street. And now with our inner voice, we're going to do that before we make any decisions. We can connect back to ourselves in daily life. And stop is step 1. Our lives are so busy, right? We're overworked, overscheduled, overcommitted. We rarely have or make time to press the pause button. Can you relate? Raise your hand. That is one of my missions, is to help us pause more often. The fact is that is what we need. We don't need to do more. We need to do less and pause more. The purpose of the stop phase is to give yourself a chance to just be. Put the phone down, turn off notifications, find a quiet space. And if you're in an office and you have kids running around, whatever, put on some noise-canceling headphones if you can. You just need to create a little tiny bit of space for yourself. Then sit down, close your eyes, and breathe. That's all. At first, this pause is really scary. All of your thoughts, feelings, and things that you're avoiding will come crashing into your stillness. My friends, this is why everyone says they can't meditate, because they can't turn their thoughts off. That is okay. It's not about turning your thoughts off. It's about letting them come up because you've spent all of your time suppressing them. Let them come, and here's the trick that you may be missing. Let them go. It's like the wave of an ocean. It's going to come in toward the sand. Oh my God, look at all the water. And then it's going to retreat and slide away. Find that pulsation. Get comfortable in that pulsation. Your role in the stop phase is to witness and not hold on. The more you do this, the easier it will become. In fact, I have a whole episode coming about brain sweat, which is a concept I developed based on this. Okay, so stay tuned for that. And all you have to do is start with 5 minutes once a day. That's all, to stop. Then try twice a day, then 3 times a day. You'll find that the more you stop, the more you'll seek the inner peace that comes from the stillness. Okay, step 2, look. Now that you created intentional space, right? You're creating intentional space. You can take a few minutes to observe what's happening. Take a peek inside and check in with yourself. Here's the cool thing about step 2. Right now, I'm just introducing you to the look and a notice, right? Notice what you're feeling, what's going on in your body, your mind, your heart. Pay particular attention to your body and heart, as the mind is always loud and wanting attention. And you can ask yourself in this step, how am I feeling in this moment? What do I need right now? What am I resisting? Am I okay? And then notice. Now, here's the cool thing. During the 5-day challenge that I'm running that starts March 16th, we will go deeper into this look phase, because the answers that bubble up when you ask these questions will come from one of the 5 inner voice types that you have. So how am I feeling? You might notice chills or a sensation in your body. You might hear answers. You might receive something from elsewhere. You need to first discover your inner voice type. Well, you don't need to, but it's helpful to discover your inner voice type when you go into this look phase, because then you'll know what to listen for, and it will just make things move so much faster. If you feel resistance to the questions, also know during this look phase that is part of the process. Your ego wants to keep you safe and busy with to-dos, right? So already you've stopped, which is stressful for the ego. And things are going to come up with the stop. And as you look and you ask these deep questions, you might feel resistance, you might feel uncomfortable, you may want to retreat, and that is okay. Acknowledge that your mind is just trying to do its job and keep you safe, and you can just tell it, mind, thank you for doing your job, but I am safe right now, and I am willing to receive these answers. This step is all about noticing and being the witness. You cannot change what you aren't aware of. So this practice, regardless of if you're trying to find your inner voice, just the stop and look practice is so gosh darn valuable in your everyday life. You start to become a witness to yourself, and you'll stop asking questions like, why is this happening to me? I don't understand how this happened, because you'll have noticed along the way. You're just more connected. You're also showing your body and your heart that you care, you're paying attention, and that it is actually safe for your inner voice to speak up, that you're willing to listen. Which is step 3, listen. This is the final step, and it's to listen to yourself. Like I mentioned a second ago, how many times have you casually asked, what's wrong with me? Maybe, how did this happen? I don't understand. But you never bother to find out. You can't ask the question and then not listen. Or even worse, that's really not the best question to ask, because when we ask a question like, what's wrong with me? What's going to happen? Well, you're going to get an answer to the question. Versus you can ask a question like, what came together that brought me to this point? And then you can look more with the eye of reflection versus judgment and criticism. And then your inner voice loves to answer questions like that. Your ego loves to answer questions like, what's wrong with me? Because it has a whole list of what's wrong with you, right? Because you're not good enough and you're not lovable. False. The inner voice will tell you that. You're healthy, you're inspiring, you are on the right path. And if you're not on the right path, it will gently guide you. It will never be harsh or critical when you're receiving these answers. And that's a good sign. As you're listening, if the answers feel scary and mean and harsh and judgmental and critical, that's your ego. And again, all you have to do is say, thank you for doing your job, but I do not need you right now. I am safe and I'm willing to hear my inner voice. And then see what comes up via your inner voice type. Our bodies, our hearts are constantly sending us signals, okay? The inner voice will only help you understand the signals, but even if you're completely disconnected, you are receiving on a regular basis. We possess so much wisdom, and yet we ignore, deny, and neglect the signals we receive. Have you ever felt really exhausted and thought, oh, I don't know what's wrong with me. Why am I so tired? And so instead of resting, you push through and do your regular routine. And then maybe 2 days later, you wake up sick. It's because you didn't listen to the early signs, the subtle signs, and you didn't check in with your inner voice. And so your body has to be more aggressive in the signals that it sends you so that you will listen. The practice of listening means that you won't be out of commission from the demands of your body and heart. Instead, you can hear what it needs on a regular basis and make micro shifts to support your highest self. Again, it doesn't mean you'll suddenly hear a loud and clear message from your inner voice, though you may, just like from the Eat, Pray, Love book and movie. But it also depends on your inner voice type of what comes up, what you hear. Whether it's sensations in your body, a flare-up of annoyance, frustration, sadness, anything can come through. The point is to actually tune in, listen, and interpret the sensations, feelings, or sounds. As you start to integrate listening to your body and heart every single day, you'll train it to speak up. You're saying, look, I care, I am listening, I am willing to hear what you have to say. And over time, you will develop a clear channel to hear what your inner voice has to say. It's amazing. So you can start to integrate this into your everyday life. You'll notice a difference. And in fact, just stop, look, and listening for a few minutes a day. You'll notice that you feel a bit more calm and connected to your higher self and your inner voice. And you'll start to notice the subtle signs of communication. You don't even have to do anything with them. Just notice and be grateful that your body is willing and able to communicate with you. Stop, look, and listen. If you have a decision that you need to make, even something as simple as what to order off the menu, take a pause and try it out. Start with really small, simple decisions, or even no decisions, right? Just bring it into a random moment during the day and notice the feedback. What happens? How do you feel afterward? We're just at the tip of the iceberg here, guys. This is the very beginning, and it starts with awareness. This is one tool to better know and understand yourself. I have so many more in the Align in 5 membership, and we'll really go deep into your inner voice typing during the 5-day challenge on March 16th. But these practices complement all your other inner work, your meditation, your exercise, the way you eat, the way you think and talk to yourself, your support system. It can be integrated into mindful moments throughout your day. And as always, as you know, I know you know, consistent practice is what will create strength and confidence in your ability. I want you to be able to stop, look, and listen at the drop of a hat because the more you do it, the easier it will become. In fact, likely, like me, you'll start craving this mindful time spent with yourself. And just finally, a little quote for you. As Aristotle says, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. If you try the stop, look, and listen method, please let me know. I want to hear all about your experience. You can tag me on Instagram, always at Dana_Evans, or leave a review and comment on iTunes for the podcast. And as always, if this will resonate with someone that you know, please share it with them. Let's spread the word. Let's all start to stop, look, and listen so that we can be more intentional, more connected, and more confident in ourselves. I hope you have a beautiful day. Until next time, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Tuning In podcast. As always, if this would resonate with anyone you know, please share the episode. You can follow along with my journey on Instagram at Dana_Evans, or find me on my website at alignful.com.